Hello and welcome to Taskmaster Talks with Kevin Sullivan. I am your host, JP John Poz. With me, of course, the star of the show, the former WCW and ECW World Tag Team Champion, the former booker of the WCW 83 Weeks of Dominance, the man behind the NWO, the Games Master, the Taskmaster, the Devil himself, Mr. Kevin Sullivan. Kevin, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, JP. How are you, my friend?
Doing good. I'm doing good. It just seems like, man, the wrestling world's got so much going on. Maybe too much, too many shows. It's insane. AEW's got 3 or 4 shows a week. WWE's got 3 or 4 shows a week. Just crazy. But man, Monday Night Raw ratings were at 2 million. They haven't seen that in a while. SmackDown was at 2.4 million. Roman Reigns segments go to between 2.8 and 2.9 million. So I don't know. It's like the more they throw out there, the fans are still watching, especially WWE.
Okay, let me ask you this. What is AEW, John?
So Dynamite does around 800, 900,000 per week. Collision between 600 and 850. And then Rampage is, God, like 400,000, something low.
So all three of those shows don't even match Roman Reigns.
No. Nope.
Think about that, brother.
He's the man.
It's not knocking AEW either. I mean, there was on YouTube, there's a collection of, it's about an hour and a half long. Have you seen it? The bloodline from the beginning.
Oh, no, I want to watch that. Okay, that's awesome.
Brother, I mean, you forget about how many great things. Kevin Owens getting handcuffed to the cage. I never saw that before in my life. Sami Zayn approaching one of the Usos about when Roman wanted to hit Kevin. Roman wanted Sami to hit Kevin with the chair. He wouldn't do it and ended up hitting him with the chair. I mean, so many intricate things. But their matches have all been exciting, too. And it goes along with the storyline. And I said this, you know, I was at Conrad's place last weekend for his Patreon people.
Yeah, Top Guy Weekend. Yeah, awesome.
And I asked Eric, and Eric said it was better than the NWO, which I said.
Whew. I know. I interviewed Eric like a month ago, and he said that. And I'm like, "What? It's better than NWO?"
It was.
Wow.
You know why it was?
Why?
It's real simple. Did any babyface get over when the NWO first got together?
Oof, no, because Savage got beat. This guy got beat. Yeah.
No, don't even go there. They all
Yeah.
got slaughtered.
Yeah.
Besides them getting over, they've made a bunch of baby faces on the way. It's the greatest. Whoever did that, it was, Jonathan Living Seagull. Have you ever heard of that book?
No. Mm-mm.
It was big in the 80s, okay? It was about a different seagull that wanted to fly higher and all this shit. And the guy that wrote it actually comes from one of these islands I live off of. He said that he didn't write the book. The book wrote itself. He just sat there and was like, you know, and I think that's what must have happened here, whoever wrote this thing. Because it just is an amazing, amazing storyline. And the character development. Think about this. They can end shows with just their interviews.
Yep.
Pretty amazing.
And I just had a conversation with somebody, a friend of mine in the business a little bit. He was talking about John Cena and stuff. And I was like, you know what? I was thinking about Cena. Every year he was on top, less and less people watch, which means, yes, he's popular to the people that he's popular to, which is a decent amount of people, but he kept getting less and less viewers. So less and less people kept interested, and he got no one over, which was interesting. So then Reigns since he's been champ, the ratings, shockingly, since they were going down for 20 years, they've actually been going up. They maintained for a little bit. Now they're going up, and he got over Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, Drew McIntyre, Cody Rhodes. Like, he got over all these guys along the way. And it's funny, the Cena era, which everybody says is so great, was absolutely awful and led to less business. And him getting no one over. Reigns' era is leading to more business. The ratings keep going up, and he got 4 or 5 guys over along the way, including Solo and including the Usos. So there you go, 7 guys he got over.
He actually got Jake Paul over too when he worked.
Oh, Logan Paul, yeah, yep.
Yeah, McIntyre when he worked with him in the in Scotland.
Yep, yep.
Who else? I said
Kevin and Sammy.
Yeah, but the Bro brother, the one who wrestles with no shoes on.
Matt Riddle.
Matt Riddle got Matt over. I mean, think about this. Stopping a slide of 20 years, and then your interviews are outdrawing 3 other wrestling shows.
Yeah, crazy.
Yep. Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were saying the last quarter hour, the 1 week with Reigns, when Jimmy, I guess, they were teasing the Jimmy Uso and Jey Uso the turn, like who's going to be Bloodline, who's not, did 2.9 million for the quarter hour. So that was, Reigns literally just sitting there talking and admonishing them. So that was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quite a draw that Roman Reigns. So to your point, when you said not to take the title off of him at Mania, you're right, because the ratings keep going up. Like, that was a pretty smart move.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
I heard all the people right afterwards saying, "Oh, how could you possibly say that?" I don't hear that anymore.
No, because they can't. The ratings are up.
Not even that. Do you think Cody, and I think Cody's a terrific babyface, they could have jumped from that story to write a story for Cody that quick?
No, and I guarantee he'd be getting the Cena syndrome where he gets booed by half the building if he won the title.
Yeah, because if you watch this, the deeper we go, the more cheers Roman's getting. And I've seen all the people stick their finger up in the air now, haven't you?
Yep.
So, I mean, all the people said, "Oh, they did the absolutely," and all these people that were saying that had never been in the back given a finish.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's funny when they interviewed Triple H. The dirt sheet guys were asking him, like, "Oh, how come Cody didn't win?" And he kind of has like a smile on his face a little bit. He's like, "Because that's not where the story's headed." Like, he knows what he's doing, booking wise.
Absolutely.
I just can't believe that you and Eric are in agreement. Better than the NWO. Nothing's better than the NWO. NWO saved the business. No? Didn't it? I think it did.
Yeah, it saved it, and I think this did too. I mean, they were headed strictly downhill.
Yeah. Yep.
Very similar.
And it's funny when you look at like the pandemic and stuff, they really focused on like storytelling and facial expressions and acting with Roman Reigns, stuff like that. And that's what really kind of slowly but surely got this thing over. It was like just the character development of all these guys. It was great.
Right. And to me, Sammy's character was just watching with his hand motions, his facial, his body work. It was been great. And Kevin too. I mean, they all did a magnificent job.
Who would you have beat Roman? Do they have anybody to even come close? Or are you going to keep the title on him to the next Mania?
Oh, yeah. How could you take it off of him?
I would.
If you took it off him, what would you have for the next WrestleMania?
I have no clue.
You got to know where you're going every WrestleMania.
Funny, though, if you look at the history of WrestleMania, no guy has been champ for 4 straight WrestleManias. Even Hogan, because he would lose and then he'd win it back at Mania and stuff. But it's crazy to think, like, wow, through the 40-year history of WrestleMania, he might be the first guy ever to be the champion 4 WrestleManias in a row.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that it's either to be Cody, or do you put McIntyre in there, or do you put Sammy in there?
Maybe try to get The Rock. He
Okay.
ain't winning it, but try to get The Rock in.
Well, isn't on Rock's contract he has to win?
I have no clue. I'm not sure.
I think that's in his contract.
Wow, that would be interesting.
But okay, if he beats The Rock, where do you go from there?
Got to have a tribal celebration. Everyone's got to acknowledge him. That's Samoan. Bring them all in.
Yeah, but
As far as this next feud, I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, so it's going to be interesting. They got our attention, that's for sure. So
yeah, yep.
Yep.
So the topic at hand today is the NWA Great American Bash 1987. We'll be focusing in just on the July 4th, 1987 show, which of course was at the Omni in Atlanta, Georgia. This show, like the previous year, it was a series of events held throughout the summer of 87. This time, though, this year only had 3 events versus 1986, which had 13 events. And this was the first real use of the War Games, the Match Beyond, which, of course, was an idea conceived by the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. What is going on here as far as War Games, which would be the main event? What do you know? Did you help Dusty create it? Did he ask you for anything? Because I know he's asked you for stuff before, but what about War Games Match Beyond?
No, I wasn't even, the territory.
Yeah, so in 1987, you were in Continental, you were in Florida. Dusty does, step in a little bit when they buy Florida, and him and the Road Warriors do a couple spots down there, but no real communication with Dusty in 87, picking his brain or anything?
Not really, no. I mean, we were off by ourselves at that time.
When you look at Florida at this point, though, obviously Dusty's exit and the Eddie Graham death, I mean, obviously everything is starting to hurt WWF global dominance. Did you guys feel that, like, wow, Dusty screwed us, he left us here? Like, were you pissed when Dusty kind of hurt? I mean, this is years earlier, but when you see it at the demise of it, the eventual demise, were you thinking like, man, Dusty really, effed us up here with Florida?
No, I couldn't say that because they weren't happy with Dusty. And they said some cruel things. And Dusty left because he didn't want to listen to their bullshit. So I don't blame him.
What were they saying about Dust?
That he couldn't draw and that he drew big houses, but after that houses were territories hurt. Yeah, but you got to understand that. If you're going for big houses and you're loading the cards up when you go back to normal houses, a normal booking, you're not going to have 20 matches on the card and, flying guys in from all over the country. So I didn't blame Dusty. Not at all.
Seems like the normal ebb and flow of business for wrestling. That's what it seems like.
Well, that's what it should have been, yeah, but they didn't. They were so desperate they couldn't allow for a week to go by and then be down.
So Dusty obviously comes up with War Games, the Match Beyond. Do you love the concept? Do you love the thought of it? I mean, obviously, War Games is the steel cage, goes over 2 rings, obviously. There's going to be 10 guys in this one. In other years, there's 8 guys. But for this year, they're going to do a 5-on-5 match. You do the little coin flip. Obviously 2 guys start, and then whoever gets the coin flip, you get a 1-man advantage for about 5 minutes, and you kind of go on from there. So it's going to be a longer cage match. Once all 10 guys are in the ring, submit or surrender. Do you love this match? Do you love the idea? Where did it come from?
Sure, it came from Dusty. I'm not a real big for or against it. It kind of goes against everything a cage match is for. A cage match is the last match with a big feud. So you got 10 guys feuding with one another.
Here, Super Powers and the Horsemen. So, it does kind of make sense because you had the Road Warriors kind of feuding with the Horsemen. Obviously, Nikita and Dusty was really feuding with the Horsemen. So, kind of, and obviously Paul Ellering is mixed with the Road Warriors as well. So, it kind of does make sense just as far as the faction's concerned, putting this match together because all 10 guys were kind of feuding.
Were they feuding?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Were they built up to this kind of match?
Dusty and Flair were like as far as them putting
So
their
they were
teams together.
singles. They were singles, Dusty and Flair, right?
Yep.
How do they end up with the guys that they have no relationship with?
Well, remember when Nikita, when Magnum has that
No,
issue?
I understand
Oh,
Nikita,
okay.
but how the Road Warriors?
Well, they were kind of feuding with Arn and Tully. They were kind of feuding with the Horsemen.
But they weren't feuding with Dusty.
Well, Dusty kind of needed their help.
To me, it looks good on paper rather than the long range thought process.
So WWE always did this too. When they Hell in a Cell, it would just randomly be in like December or whatever, and then people would just have to just be thrown in the Hell in a Cell instead of building up to it. This seemed like they were actually built up to something, and they needed to do something to take care of the Horsemen. I know what you're saying though. It's just like it's not like a personal issue type of thing,
Right.
what Steel Cage used to be.
Right. And going back to what we talked about earlier, this bloodline has resurrected long term booking. And they don't do anything, I think, that in this day and age is we question everything. Everything seems to fall into place, doesn't it?
Yep. Hey, they had their own War Games match. Remember, Sammy helped the Bloodline win that one.
Right. And they have everything they got makes sense. And once you do that, it's so easy to follow the story. You know, you're not questioning anything. Like we keep on every week talking about the bloodline. Everything they do, they top one another, but they stay within their realm. That they don't go out and do something. They don't bring in, and they get everything they can out of a guy. People forgot, I think, that do you remember when this first started? Dominic was a babyface with his dad,
Yeah.
and they got that out of him. They got Ray and Dominic, and don't hit Ray again. You remember that?
Yep.
And look how far they've come from that. That's all I'm saying.
And if you look at Dominic, man, he's maybe the biggest heel on the roster outside of Roman Reigns, obviously. But every time he holds the mic, they're booing like crazy. It was like almost old school wrestling, where as soon as the heel gets the mic, Bobby Heenan grabs the mic, everyone boo boo. It's almost like that kind of sense from it. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's absolutely great.
So here for this show, obviously we're setting up War Games. You got the roof, of course, on the cage for this, the two rings. Interestingly enough, UWF was purchased by Crockett in April of '87. So you got UWF guys here. Championship Wrestling was purchased by Championship Wrestling in Florida was purchased by JCP here in '87 too. So then you have the Florida guys. It's almost like there's going to be 12 matches on the show, but we'll skip through some of them real quickly. But almost so many guys in this card, so many. Do you like that? Do you absolutely hate that? It's almost like AEW now. They bought Ring of Honor. They bring in all the Ring of Honor guys. It's almost too much talent, no?
Well, they didn't have really time to blend these guys in, right? I mean,
No. Nope.
Nobody knew who they were, most of them, right? They weren't working for Jimmy's company. Very hard, very difficult.
And if you look at it, it's just like, wow, is that really, necessary to buy UWF and to buy Florida, or is that almost a waste of money to do that? I know he's trying to compete with Vince, but do you think that was a waste of money for JCP in the end?
Well, they went bankrupt, right? Should they have been buying them anyway when they were that far in the red? I mean, somebody didn't pay attention where they were.
Right, just like the Kansas City, UWF, and CWF, just let them all die on their own and acquire whatever talent you want to scoop up. You don't need to run those towns or run the territory, so to speak. You know what I mean? It just seemed like almost like a waste of money. He was trying to copy Vince, but it was too little, too late.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it was. It was just trying to copy Vince.
Now we'll talk about the match later as far as War Games, but I do want to mention J.J. Dillon just gets severely injured in the match. He hurts his shoulder from one of the Road Warriors, kind of doing throwing him over his head gimmick there, but he lands right on his shoulder and really injures himself. So they'll have another War Games at the end of the month, July 31st, and JJ is replaced by the War Machine, which is obviously Big Bubba Rogers, aka the Big Boss Man, under a hood. So just an interesting little note here that War Games, sometimes can be not the easiest match to do physically. A lot of the guys do get hurt and do bleed a lot in these matches.
Yeah, yeah.
I know JJ is your boy. I'm sure you heard that story before. He got hurt by the Road Warriors at War
it's
Games.
their fault. The Road Warriors, they just indiscriminately threw him up over the head.
Interestingly enough, War Machine, aka Big Bubba Rogers, he gets used okay. I mean, he not like obviously with Cornette and doing the different things, so he is used well. But as soon as Vince gets a hold of him in the WWF, man, he becomes a huge star as the Big Boss Man because Hogan's feuding with him pretty much immediately. I mean, he just became a huge star. Do you think Dusty may have dropped the ball a little bit on Big Boss Man, aka Big Bubba Rogers?
I think it was all over a payoff.
Really? Wow.
In Pittsburgh, when they went in there and Dusty and Bubba turned people away, and Dusty was saying how much Bubba got. It was half of what he got. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
It was half of what he was. Well, hypothetically, we'll say he was saying he got a 10 grand payoff. He got a 5 grand payoff, and it pissed Bubba off.
Damn. Okay. Interesting. Because it just seems like they were doing something with him, like giving him a decent push here. But as soon as Vince gets a hold of him, it's like he gets like the rocket put to his ass because he gets to feud with Hogan. And really, I mean, the Twin Towers are feuding with Hogan. They were like the big, basically bridge between Hogan and Savage feuding when the Mega Powers explode, which did so much business. Maybe Hogan's best feud money-wise. It all predicated on him feuding with Boss Man beforehand and having the awesome cage match, Saturday night's main event, main eventing MSG, and having a sellout cage match there too. So it just seemed like, wow, man, you had something with Boss Man, and obviously Dusty blew it with that one.
Well, I don't know if it was Dusty's because he didn't write the checks.
Well, yeah, the Crockett blew it.
Yeah.
So with this show, like I said, we'll go through some of the matches. We don't really need to dissect some of them, but there's 12 matches on this card. Some of it almost seems like super house show matches. I know they're going to tape it. They're going to put it on VHS, and if anybody has it, it's worth a ton of money. And the cover of it's an awesome drawing of the War Games of the Cage of all like 10 guys in it. But it's almost like, wow, why are some of these guys in the card? And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the first match is Kendall Windham. This is July 4th, 87 at the Omni, Atlanta, Georgia. Kendall Windham defeats Gladiator number 1. Does that really need to be on a major card? Or Gladiator number 1 is Gary Royal underneath the hood. Does that really need to be on the card?
No, but they had just bought in Florida, right?
Yes.
Kendall was an instrumental part of the Florida territory. You had to give your main guys, their payoff. They've been struggling with money down there. So, go ahead.
So after Kendall defeats Gladiator number 1, we have the second match. Sting, who's fresh off the UWF, defeats Thunderfoot number 1, a.k.a. Joel Deaton. Another thing, okay, you have these guys, you have Joel Deaton coming in, you have Sting coming in fresh off Watts' UWF that you just bought. I guess trying to get everybody on the card kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I know who they are at this period, but I don't know much about them. You know what I mean? I didn't go to UWF but a couple of times from Florida to wrestle the dog,
So then we have 2 more singles matches. Lasertron, which is, of course, Hector Guerrero defeating Mod Squad Spike. What do you think about Lasertron, that gimmick? I mean, it's very, I guess, 80s, a nice little 80s gimmick for Hector Guerrero. It's actually not bad, but it's actually kind of a cool look.
It's a cool look, and it's a very 80s gimmick.
What do you think about Hector as a worker?
Oh, great. Fabulous as Guerrero,
You think he lacked the charisma? Like, as far as the family goes, I mean, Eddie had charisma out the yin-yang. Do you think that Hector had, lacking in that department a little bit?
Maybe a little, but he was never put in the position that Eddie and Chavo Jr. were. Chavo, rather, was, you know what I mean?
Who do you think was outside of Eddie? Who do you think was the best worker as far as Guerrero? Chavo, Mondo, Hector?
Chavo Jr. and Chavo. Chavo drew a lot of money in L.A. I mean, he set records. Him and Piper. I mean, he did very well in Texas. The father did, well all over Texas, L.A., San Francisco. I mean, the father was a big draw too.
Gory. Yep.
Yeah, huge draw.
I think some of that Piper Chavo feud, I don't think we'd be able to do that today. Some of the stuff that Piper was saying.
No, you can't.
The hot tamale stuff and the other the people, oh, Piper's racist, but I mean, it got over like Rover over there.
But people didn't say that back then. Everybody
No, of course not. Yep.
So, I mean, it just goes to show you how maybe advanced we've become.
Then the next matchup, Jimmy Valiant defeats Mod Squad Basher. So James Jefferson, Mac Jefferson, they were the Mod Squad, Spike and Basher, kind of an enhancement upper or a lower card guy, just a lower card team. Again, do they really need to put Jimmy Valiant one-on-one against Mod Squad Basher on this big card? I don't know, but they did. It just, I don't know, like just putting the Mod Squad in singles matches, maybe just do a tag match if you really wanted to get them on the card.
I don't know why they did that. I mean, they're a tag team. I don't have any clue why they did it, unless they get paid more being in singles. I don't know.
So the next match up, Barry Windham defending his NWA Western States Heritage Championship. Barry Windham defeats the one and only Rick Steiner, who was fresh off UWF at this point. So Windham over Steiner, kind of a shorter match, but obviously two names that people are going to recognize. Windham in 87 was on fire, just an unbelievable worker, had some unbelievable matches with Flair in 87, in NWA and in Florida as well. So Windham definitely his year. I just love the look of the Western States Heritage title. If anybody hasn't, just Google it, but the look of that title is awesome.
Yeah. Barry was a hell of a performer.
And Rick in 87, not that he's green, but obviously he's very, very young to the business and fresh off UWF here. I mean, you could see he's like a pile of clay. They got something with Rick Steiner here in 87, but not quite, main events level Rick Steiner as of yet. I mean, he's very, very young to the business.
You're absolutely right.
Do you think that Barry Windham, not his demons caught up with him, but do you think that maybe he could have been Flair level and never quite got there?
Absolutely.
What held him back?
Injuries.
Man, he was. If you look at some of like Flair's best matches, best opponents, he's got to be up there.
I don't know who would be a better opponent. I think he's a better opponent than Steamboat was.
Wow, I was going to say Steamboat. Okay.
Rick never had a bad match with Barry. The people on their feet the whole way. Barry was over more than Steamboat. Yeah.
You think so? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Next.
Do I think so?
Yeah.
Okay. Chi-Town Heat. Remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
The world champion, Ric Flair, comes out with a bevy of beauties, right?
Oh, Chi-Town Rumble. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bevy of beauties, right?
Yep.
What did Steamboat come out with? His wife, a
beautiful wife and kid.
baby.
Yeah. Yep.
Come on, please. Tyson Fury do that?
No.
Ali, Joe Frazier, come on.
Nope.
No.
Conor McGregor. Nope.
No.
The next match up here, probably your favorite tag team of all time, Ron Garvin and Jimmy Jam Garvin with Precious defeating Vladimir Petrov and the Barbarian with Paul Jones as the manager. Ronnie Garvin and Jimmy Garvin here were getting quite a push. Ronnie Garvin would eventually in September beat Flair for the world title. So he's 2 months away from a world title run here, but they defeat the legendary Vladimir Petrov and Barbarian. Do you like Jimmy Jam Garvin and Ronnie Garvin here? And do you like them both being title contenders?
Yeah, they were going to put the belt on Jimmy.
Can you see him as the world champ?
Back then, the angle was so big. Yeah.
Because of Precious?
Yeah. It was so hot, that angle.
What about Ronnie Garvin as world champion? Did you like that? Did you not like that?
Ronnie was a
What did you think of Ronnie Garvin as world champion? What do you think about Ronnie?
I don't think he ever had, check this, a title defense.
Really? What about against Nate?
That was when he lost.
Interesting. I'll have to look that up. I don't recall. I don't know if he ever beat Flair like before that, like in any sort of rematch. I'm not recalling. I know that obviously he beat Flair, held the belt for a little bit, and then he loses at Starrcade 87 in November.
He was only in tag matches, I believe.
Why is that?
That's the way Dusty booked it.
Why do you think Ron won the title to begin with? Shake it up? Shake things up?
No, they had promised it to Jimmy, and he figured, he didn't want to go back his word, so he gave it to Ronnie. Because Jimmy was out for a while.
Did you think that was the right choice, Ron Garvin as world champion?
Well, if you tell somebody that belt is so important that it's going to transpire, you got to do something. You know what I mean? I admire Dusty in one way doing it, but I would have held off till Jimmy was healthier.
Do you think Ron was over enough to be the champ?
No. Nope.
When you look at him versus Flair, those matches are unbelievable. Like that,
Yeah.
I love their chemistry. Obviously, Flair can work with anybody, but him and Garvin are awesome together. Ron is almost underrated in a certain aspect, or maybe underappreciated, because I really thought he was a good worker, good hand. He could have good matches with a lot of guys, and I thought he was great with Flair. I mean, those matches were great. I didn't mind him as world champ. It's only less than 2 months, but I mean, I don't mind him as world champ.
Oh, I didn't either. I mean, he worked very hard, but the thing was, Ronnie didn't go into many big territories. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then his career was mostly in tag teams when he was with Terry Garvin. And then he was with Jimmy. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's almost like a little bit of a shock booking by Dusty.
Yeah.
Like the crowd is absolutely shocked when he ends up winning the title.
Yeah. Hey, you can edit this out. We got to go a little faster. I had a problem. I get a check that comes every month for my annuities.
Yep.
And somehow they lost it. That was my wife calling me. They can find it, but I got to fill up papers. We got about 20 minutes.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
So then the Lightning Express, Tim Horner and Brad Armstrong defeat the Angel of Death and Big Bubba Rogers with Skandar Akbar to retain their UWF tag team titles. Lightning Express, Tim Horner and Brad Armstrong. Pretty damn good team right there.
Yeah, but they were in the UWF, right?
Yep. This was UWF tag team title match.
Yeah. And who was the tag team? It was Angel Death, UWF, but wasn't Bubba?
Yep, he was UWF too at this point. They actually got him from the UWF.
No. Big Bubba Rogers?
Yeah, he was a former UWF World Heavyweight Champion.
Yeah, but he came from them. He was, you remember when he was Jimmy's guy?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
That's how he broke in the business.
Right.
He was doing jobs in Atlanta, and then Dusty made a big bubber, and he smashed the chair over his head, and then they went to Pittsburgh. So he was in and out of UWF.
Yep.
So he wasn't there full time, was he?
No, not as far as I know.
Okay.
But obviously, Crockett gets his hands on him. They're kind of giving him a bit of a push, and then all of a sudden, obviously, he goes to WWF, like we mentioned before, and has that awesome feud with Hogan for a while. But when you look at this, obviously, again, they're putting UWF guys on the card as well as the Florida guys. I mean, there was a lot of guys in this card.
I think they really messed up with that UWF. It was like a shoot. I mean, us against them. Do you know what I mean? You've heard the stories.
Yep.
It was so ridiculous. You know.
When you look at it too, it's, I don't know, like it didn't bring in more business to Crockett. You know, it hurt the pocketbook.
And that should have been two different companies. It could have been like NWA before the NWO rather. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
It could have been the American Football League against the National Football League.
Yep.
Yeah, they didn't do themselves any favors there.
Definitely.
But they had an attitude with both sides. Had an attitude. UWF guys weren't happy that Bill sold, and they felt like they were the second. You know, they were the redhead cousins. And I don't even know if you can say that anymore. Redhead cousins, right? It's a redhead league. You know, there was animosity there too. You know, you have two world champions, you know, kind of goofy.
Very, very goofy.
Yeah.
And as far as the next matchup, again, a little bit of a UWF flavor. Chris Adams defeats Black Bart with Skandar Akbar via DQ. So even more UWF guys in the show. Skandar Akbar, did you like him as a manager? I know, obviously, more of a territorial guy, and we really never made it to quote unquote the big times, but a lot of people love him as like one of the old school managers.
I thought he was very good. He played his role. He stayed in character. He was a heel all the time. He always had this tremendous wad of cash on him. And, he's supposed to be a rich Arab, and he throw that money around. He was JP, I'm telling you, he had probably, every time he went out, he had $3,000-4,000 on him. He stopped at a 7-Eleven, opened that up, and there'd be all hundreds, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Everybody, you go to these little towns, everybody thought he was, really an oil prince.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So he had Akbar's army, but of course, everybody knows Devastation Inc. was his big heel faction. Really just Mid-South, world-class, a little bit of global kind of mixed in there. I think most famously, maybe known for the Fireball, maybe? Is that kind of his claim to fame?
I guess so. And then remember him, and you mentioned him and Gary being together, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was a good thing. I liked him and Gary together.
As far as Chris Adams is concerned, too, they don't really do much with Chris Adams, but another guy who's a good talent for sure.
I thought I got to work with Chris a couple of times. And he was a fabulous performer. I mean, he could move. Everything he did made sense. He was ahead of his time. He was really, really good.
So the next matchup, we have the fabulous Freebirds, Buddy Roberts, Michael Hayes, and Terry Gordy defeating Ivan Koloff, Manny Fernandez, and Paul Jones in a six-man tag. Here's a couple guys from the Mid-South that are definitely draws. The fabulous Freebirds.
Yeah, yeah. Fabulous performers. I love the difference of each one of them brought to the table.
Absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect together. Buddy, the little workhorse who can, kind of take the fall. Michael was the big mouth, and obviously Gordy's the awesome worker who's just the bruiser, the monster, the heater. I mean, he was the man.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Then we have the Rock and Roll Express versus the Midnight Express. This is a tag team championship match. Interesting because Midnight Express are the U.S. tag team champions, and the Rock and Roll Express are the NWA tag team champions. So this match ends up going to goes to a disqualification. The Rock and Roll Express then ends up getting the victory, but that means that the Midnight Express are still the U.S. tag team champions, and that means that the Rock and Roll Express are still the NWA tag team champions. So a little bit of a schmozz finish just to keep everybody with their title belts.
Right. I'm not so sure I like that kind of finish with two champions.
Almost like you knew it was coming. Like, I don't think they're going to
Yeah.
be double champs, like kind of thing. Yeah, it's not like too much of a schmozz.
Yeah.
That is possibly the greatest tag team feud of all time, though. Midnight and Rock and Roll Express never had a bad match. They drew in many different territories. Just one of those things where they just had awesome chemistry against each other.
Well, they're fabulous workers. I don't think it could be any better than those guys.
And here, of course, is Eaton and Lane with Cornette. So
Yeah.
Condry's gone. Who'd you like better, Eaton and Lane or Eaton and Condry?
I was thinking about that the other day. I mean, it's a toss up. And then there was, before that, there was Condry and Phil Hickerson as a tag.
Yeah.
So I think as you go further in the change in the wrestling business, maybe Stan was the new guy to go with. You know what I mean? Not disparaging Dennis at all, but Stan, he had that look. So I think he was the guy to go with Bobby.
Perfect. It's crazy to think like you can have a legendary tag team that one of the guys gets replaced and the team is just as good with the new guy. Rarely happens like that. Usually you have a downfall, but maybe like you said, maybe they even got better.
Yeah.
Can't forget too Dennis Condrey and Randy Rose, and obviously Norvell Austin at one point. So
Right.
a lot of different members of the incarnations of the Midnight Express.
Right.
Next up, we have Dr. Death Steve Williams, fresh off of the UWF, with Magnum TA versus Dick Murdoch, and Steve Williams defeats Dick Murdoch, who was with Eddie Gilbert. So even more UWF guys, and this time it was a Texas death match.
Well, how much had people seen UWF clips off of Crockett TV? Not much, right?
Nope, right.
So you're advertising these matches, hoping to get something out of it. Now, you really getting anything out of it except exposure for the guys? What do you think?
That's true. It's one of those things where, I don't know. I'm just having a hard time with so many guys being on the show or on the card. You know what I mean? It's just
you don't know who they are.
Yeah, and you're not familiar with them yet as you probably should be. Yes.
Right.
AEW is the same problem today, always.
Let me ask you that Forbidden Door thing. Do you think most American wrestling fans know those Japanese guys?
Some of them, yes, because they've been over here for about 10 years. But some of them absolutely not.
And they get a vested interest in them?
I would honestly say only a couple of them. They probably have vested interest. Not all of them, no.
How many out of a couple?
Tanahashi, Okada for sure, and maybe Naito. So probably three guys at the top. Yeah.
And Evil. Okay, so maybe there's four. How many? How well do you think they drew on this pay-per-view?
Better than last year, which did 135. So they're saying between 150 and 160
Oh, good.
buys. Yeah,
Good.
so good, good. And they said the attendance, they did 15,000 people and did a $1.2 million gate. So they said it was actually more money than last year with this. So it actually went up.
Well, good. I mean, I'm not knocking this, but it's like we're talking about this. No people seeing people, right?
Right.
We got UWF guys. They should have had me having a clip of this, something for 52 weeks. And we get to know somebody. We see a match from Japan. We're going to have one guy's going to wrestle Jericho, another one's going to wrestle Daniels, and then we got another one going to wrestle MJF or whoever.
Yep.
And you show these guys week after week and have them do. If they can't do interviews, you put the language barrier on the bottom and let the people get to know them. It's hard to draw when a guy's just casually known, as we're seeing here, right?
Yep. It is. It can be a bit rough for sure, but it actually looks like Forbidden Door is starting to catch on, I guess, because they're doing better business this year.
Well, they went up from
I think it was 127 or 130 to I think between 150 and 160.
Okay,
so it went up about 30,000, between 20 and 30,000 buys.
Right, and your expenses went up. So, did it really help you?
I don't know. We'll see, right?
What I'm saying is, if you look at what we started talking about, the bloodline, because long range planning, right?
Yes.
They should be showing something starting next week on all these guys that they hope are going to be here next year.
Keep everybody familiar. Yes, right?
Yeah.
They're saying that New Japan and AEW want to have this big relationship together because they're afraid WWE and UFC are going to start merging and doing stuff together. So they want to make sure that they keep the audience they have and maybe grow together.
How is that going to work?
I have no clue.
The UFC and WWE, I don't think are going to work closely together, but they're under one roof.
Yep.
These guys are worlds apart, and they're under two completely different roofs.
Yep.
I hope they do well together. I'm just saying, it's apples and oranges when you compare.
It looks like they were getting some sort of help. UFC was getting help with WWF from like video packages and production and things of that nature, which UFC really, really struggled in. I mean, people can say what they want, but the UFC production value compared to WWE was pure shit, to be honest. So, I mean, they apparently were helping them with their production. So I think that would be a big boost to UFC.
And I think you're absolutely right. So they got something out of it without crossing their talent over.
Yep. And Kevin Dunn, I mean, his crew, they're probably the best production people in the business, period. Maybe outside of Hollywood.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough here, Big Bubba Rogers is a UWF champion. He loses a week later to Dr. Death, becomes UWF champion in July 11th of 1987. So even though they have sold, they're still doing title changes and they're still pretending UWF is kind of their own entity. And then Dr. Death is the last UWF champion as they kind of get rid of that title. But just interesting, they're still kind of pretending they're, an entity, even though they're not really an entity because Crockett bought them.
Really?
I don't know if I like that. I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of that even today with AEW with Ring of Honor, how they're doing title changes and stuff. Like, is it really still Ring of Honor? I know they're trying to do Ring of Honor television and they'll tape it in Florida and they'll put it on Honor Club. But I mean, AEW owns it? Is it really separate? I mean, it's one entity.
Are guys going back and forth?
Yes.
Well, how can well, it's maybe they put Kerry Silkin as the owner of the company, huh?
Oh, that'd be nice. I just talked to Carrie yesterday. That would be nice. Yeah.
How's he doing?
He's doing really good. Doing very good. It's funny, he didn't want to talk about ROH, but he kept bringing it up. So he did want to talk about ROH. I knew it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here we are, the main event of the evening, the Super Powers versus the Horsemen, the Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal with Paul Ellering. It was obviously in the match too. Nikita Koloff and the team captain Dusty Rhodes versus the Four Horsemen: Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Lex Luger, Tully Blanchard, and JJ Dillon with Dark Journey in their corner. Obviously, this is War Games. This is the match beyond. This is when all 10 guys are in the ring together. You have to submit or surrender. There's a lot of blood. There's a lot of legit injuries here. There's a lot of really, really tough, hard-nosed match. 5-star match here from Dave Meltzer. So I personally would agree with him on that one. I would go out of my way to watch this. War Games, great match here. The Road Warriors, Ellering, Nikita, and Dusty get the win. Obviously, J.J. Dillon taps out here and loses for the team. He surrenders, and the winners are the Super Powers as they go over here in War Games.
How did Dark Journey? Was she from the UWF?
Yes, but she would also then become Tully's manager for a while.
Okay.
Good old Miss Linda there. Yeah, Dark Journey. Yep.
Yes.
But she was from Mid-South.
So did people know her from Mid-South? I mean, from Crockett?
So when they bought them in April, this is July, so 3 months earlier, they bought it. She became Tully's manager, and then...
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yep. So, they're familiar with her at this point, I would think.
Yeah.
But what do you think here, though? Obviously, baby faces need to go over in War Games?
Well, you have to protect the Road Warriors, right?
I would think so.
Yeah. And Dusty, yeah.
And Nikita, right? Keep Nikita strong, too.
Yeah.
Do you like the Horsemen of Flair, Arn, Tully, and Luger? That 4 Horsemen grouping.
I do like them, yes. But I like Barry in there.
What about Ole? Because obviously they beat up Ole and they kick him out, and Luger is the new guy who they're pumping up. That's a part of the future of wrestling here. Do you like that though? Ole over Luger, or you like Luger over Ole?
I think I like Luger over Ole.
Really? Why?
New generation.
If you look at it behind the scenes,
right.
And Arn would tell me this, of course, and Tully said the same thing. Luger would hang out with them, go drinking with them and stuff, so they were actually like a cohesive unit.
Right.
He's the young guy, but he's hanging out with them. He wants to be like them. He said Ole wanted nothing to do with them outside of the business. Didn't want to go drinking with them. Didn't want to hang out with them. He's taking his son to wrestling tournaments. I'm not hanging out with you guys.
Yeah.
Like he loved Arn. He loved him, but he didn't want to hang out with him.
No, and Ole was to himself quite a bit.
So just to put a capper on this one, they do have the July 18th Charlotte, North Carolina Memorial Stadium part of the tour, which Dusty defeated Tully in the main event there in a lights out barbed wire ladder match for $100,000. Then they go to Miami, Florida in the Orange Bowl on July 31st, 1987 to finish off the tour. Oddly enough, you were on that tour, by the way. You're on that match. You defeated Dory Funk Jr. in a Texas death match. So you do make your way the last leg of the tour in July. Of course, it's in Miami, so it's your Florida. It's in your territory.
It's in the Orange Bowl, right?
Yep, you beat Dory Funk. I can't believe that. What a win.
Yeah, I've worked with Dory quite a bit. I worked with Dory in San Francisco when they were running San Francisco out of L.A., and I was the babyface. When they were running San Francisco out of Florida, rather. And I was the babyface. Yeah. I got to work with Dory quite a bit.
That's a huge win there for you here.
Yeah,
You're beating Dory Funk Jr. at the Orange Bowl.
Yeah. Yep.
And, of course, the main event of that show was the Road Warriors, Dusty, Nikita, Paul Ellering. the Superpowers again defeating the Four Horsemen: Rick, Arn, Luger, Tully, and the War Machine. The War Machine obviously was Bubba under the hood, and he takes the loss there because JJ was injured and couldn't compete in that match. So that's the end of Great American Bash '87. What do you think about the Bash Tour '87?
I guess, I mean, the little bit I was exposed, they drew a big house. And do you see the number? Wasn't it like 27,000 people?
Over 25,000 was what I read. Yeah, so it's probably right around there. Yeah, they did. They drew well for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Sold
So,
out the Omni and did well in Charlotte, the Memorial Stadium too.
so obviously they put the right things together. That's all that matters is what you draw.
And hey, 2022 and eventually 2023, they were still using war games. So Dusty's, legacy, his lineage. I mean, it lives on. They're still using his gimmicks and his ideas today.
Right, which is cool. I really enjoyed that. Dusty was way ahead of his time.
All right, just some random questions for you. I know we were talking about just some random Great American Bash questions before we cap it off on this one. This is from Great American Bash 1995. You are the head booker. Your thoughts on the Harlem Heat defeating Dirty Dick Slater and Bunkhouse Buck?
It was time. It was time. Look at what Bunkhouse and Dickie were great, but look what uh, the Harlem Heat accomplished. And look then what Booker accomplished. So I think it was the right call.
When you look at it too, with the Heat feuding with the Stud Stable, it was kind of not the Young Guns, but this is like Harlem Heat's time, and obviously Dickie Slater's about to fade off into the sunset not too long after that.
Right. And I think Bunkhouse was getting ready to go home too. Who I've known Jimmy since I've started, and great hand. But like everything else, everything comes to an end.
Of course, that was a part of the Sherry and Colonel Parker, their little
Right.
love angle that they had going on. So the Harlem Heat and the Stud Stable were just kind of not background, but they were, being part of the feud that was going on and a part of like, are they together? Are they not together? Do they love each other? What's going on? They're using each other. So it's just an interesting storyline between Harlem Heat and Bunkhouse Buck and Dirty Dick Slater.
Right. Right.
So also Sting defeated Ming that night with Colonel Robert Parker was with Ming there. That's a match where Sting wins the vacant WCW United States Championship. What did you think of Sting going over Ming?
It was time. I mean, we were going with Sting. It was time for him to, get in the position to challenge Rick.
16-man tournament. Rick was actually in the tournament. Macho Man's in the tournament. Stone Cold, aka Stunning Steve Austin, was in the tournament. So Paul Orndorff was in the tournament. So a lot of big names were in the tournament. Obviously, Sting and Ming are, they were technically going to be the semifinals, but Flair and Savage had a no contest. So that match got bumped, and then Sting and Ming would be the finals at the pay-per-view where Sting goes over Ming. Pretty good tournament, and those two had a pretty good match with pretty good chemistry. Kind of playing off the fact that Ming was almost unbeatable too at this point, so he didn't lose too much. He didn't job too much at this period.
And he shouldn't have.
Yep.
I think that sometimes we didn't push him as hard as we should have, but it was a good win for Sting, and he was on his way.
Another question here. Why was Vader stripped of the United States title, which created the tournament? Do you remember why you did that? Did you just not want Vader to lose?
I think the reason why they did it, what year was this?
1995.
If I can remember, it was that he wasn't going to go give up his Japanese and his international business. He had business in South Africa. He had business in Germany. He had business in Mexico and business in Japan. And he was world champion in every one of them at the same time.
I also think at this point, I mean, obviously he is feuding with Hogan. So it's like, does he really need the United States Championship if he's feuding with Hogan, the world champion? It kind of, I don't know, it kind of just gummed up the U.S. title because you know that obviously Hogan's not winning the U.S. title. I mean, they're not going in that direction. It's almost like, did he really need the U.S. title at that point? He was above it.
Yeah, but I don't think that was the reason. I think it was.
Other obligations, other things he was up to.
Yeah, and they wanted him to give something up. I believe it was. I mean, he was making huge money in South Africa, and for some reason there was a connection with Germany and South Africa. Do you
Yeah.
know anything about that?
Wasn't it, was it Justin Gabriel's dad? Was he the booker over there or who was the booker over there?
I thought it was Otto Wantz, right?
Even in South Africa?
Yeah,
Wow, I didn't know that. Okay, I knew he was the booker in Europe for
yeah,
CWA.
because he used his championship was recognized over there, so I'm going to have to say he was the booker there.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So here in 95, another question. Thoughts on Ric Flair defeating Macho Man Randy Savage in the main event of the pay-per-view? Despite, maybe Angelo Poffo, him being a part of the feud, Flair still went over. What do you think about that? Why?
Well, it's Ric Flair. That's simple. It's Ric Flair.
Was it because you're going to continue the feud? Obviously, they'll feud Bash the Beach too. I mean, the feud will continue.
They're going to continue the feud since we've been there, so you can't knock Rick's legs out from first time. You know what I mean? Or the first few times, heel's got to go over.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
Now, Ric Flair said in his book that Macho Man Randy Savage was originally supposed to win, and he had it changed. Is that true or false?
That Randy had it changed?
I think Rick is intimating that Rick had it changed.
I don't remember that. Could have been. It could have been.
Do you think Savage was originally ever supposed to win? Because it's Father's Day here, Great American Bash 95. Like Angelo Paffo's there. Like then obviously Flair uses his cane to beat Savage. It just seemed like the perfect thing for the heel to win, just to build the feud, to keep it going.
Right, and this is just me. Rick might have known something that I don't know. I just don't see that Randy would bring his dad and all that, and knowing that he's going to go over, and knowing Randy, that he allowed them to pull the rug out from under him.
Right.
What do you?
I feel like Savage would, because he's so into the business and he's so much of like a smart businessman, that he would say, "Hey, Flair should go over here. We should do this thing with my dad, and then I get the win. Maybe a month down the road or 2 months down the road, like we'll build up to my win. It'll be worth more, and we'll get more heat on Flair when I beat him." Like I feel like Randy would be wanting Flair to win too.
But do you think they told Randy he was going to win, and then Rick talked him out of it?
No, I can't see it.
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't see that.
And I could see maybe Flair saying like, "Hey, I need to win," but obviously you would know better than anybody if he should win or not.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
So you agree? Flair going over is a smart move.
Oh, yeah. And you got to remember, Randy had been in WWF, right?
Yep. Oh yeah.
We wanted to make our belt mean something. Beat the number 2 guy, or one guy.
So we have a couple of questions thrown in here from Great American Bash 96. It says, whose idea was it for Eric Bischoff to get powerbomb off the entranceway onto the table by Kevin Nash? Whose idea was the powerbomb?
Who would you think? Either
Probably
the guy giving it or the guy taking it.
Probably Nash's idea or yours.
Nope. It was Kevin's and Eric's. And I think Scott had something to do with it too.
Obviously, Kevin was for it, but was Eric okay with it?
Yeah, he wanted to do it.
Man, that's just vicious power bomb. Awesome though.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Then another question is, whose idea was it for Eric Bischoff to become the evil boss months later and lead the NWO?
I think it might have been Hogan and Kevin and Scott got with Eric.
To me, it makes perfect sense because they were getting away with stuff, and it was like, as a fan, you're like, how could they get away with some of this stuff? And then you realize, oh, because the boss is helping them
Right.
get away with it the entire time.
Yeah.
So, got a couple questions from Great American Bash 1997. Thoughts on Ultimo Dragon defeating Psychosis?
So it was a good match. It was good for the babyface to win. Great performance.
Great match too, for sure. I like Ultimo obviously getting a big push. He did kind of get a big push. How come Psychosis? I mean, he was there, but he didn't quite get the big push. You know what I mean? The big push.
Some of those guys' work visas were little etchy sketchy, if you get my drift.
Yep.
So,
and Ultimo Dragon and Psychosis, that was the first match of the show. So great lead off. I know you like to do that a lot. Put the great cruiserweight action to start off the show, give the fans something to cheer for, give a great match. And this is when Sonny Ono kind of turned on Ultimo Dragon, and he was Psychosis's manager. So there's a little bit of a storyline too.
yeah.
But to me, great work, great match to kind of start off the show.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to have that to work rate. I mean, you think that for years, the Rolling Stones opening act was Tina Turner. You think they did that because it was a slow, melancholy performance?
No, no. Getting the crowd hyped, getting them into it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Harlem Heat going over the Steiner brothers at Great American Bash 1997?
Why not? They're fabulous. I mean, they were great.
It was only via DQ, so it's not like it kills the Steiners here that the Harlem Heat go over, but the Harlem Heat get the win, even though it's just via DQ. Great feud though, two of the greatest tag teams, probably the two greatest tag teams in WCW history, no doubt about that.
Yeah, that era especially. Yes, absolutely.
Another question here. How come Akira Hokuto defeated Medusa? Of course, this was the title versus career match for the WCW Women's Championship. Akira Hokuto, of course, was managed by Sonny Ono and retains her championship here.
That was Japanese business. We weren't privy to what was going on.
Well, even though it's for the WCW Women's title, I know Hokuto's the champion, but even though it's technically a WCW Women's Championship and you're trying to get that off the ground, it's still up to New Japan if they want Hokuto to lose or not.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't. There's nobody understand we were getting $1 million a year, and our guys were getting paid when they went over there plus their salary.
Don't upset the apple cart then.
Would you?
No, hell no.
Okay, so that's why.
So then the question follows up here. How come Medusa didn't win the WCW Women's Championship? Just not only here, but how come she didn't end up winning it? Just interesting because it seems like that title was created for her.
Wasn't it kept in Japan most of the time?
Yes. Yep.
So that should tell you who it was created for. We were trying to get on the best side of Japan as we possibly could and stay on the good side, because we had taken a huge stumble when Bill Watts was in there. They wouldn't even talk to us.
There was a WCW Women's Cruiserweight Championship, which was held by 3 Japanese women. Once show was in Huntsville, Alabama, but then the rest is in Japan. But this title was only held by Hokuto and Masami, and obviously Hokuto wins it, defeating Medusa in Nashville at Starrcade a few months earlier, and Masami wins it in Japan. Then it's basically vacated in January of '98. But it's funny, the WCW Women's Championship never held by an American woman, never held by Medusa.
Well, didn't Medusa get to go over there quite a bit?
A little bit, yeah, but it's interesting. This match was quote unquote her. It didn't really. She'll end up coming back, but was the end of her career. You guys kind of gave up on the women's division after this.
It was because I think we were passing the ball to New Japan because they were their girls weren't on their cards. They were on their own shows. The girls were. Are you aware of that?
Oh yes, yes, yep.
Okay. So, and especially on a Sunday show, when Currion Hall had 5 shows a day on a Sunday, they were on about the 3rd show and they drew. So we gave them that belt, and they got a lot of publicity and they did well with it. So anything to pacify them without screwing our own television up. I mean, we got a lot of good talent from them. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
And there were a lot of guys getting paid a lot of money to go over there.
For sure. Big time, big time. Next question here was the thoughts on the Outsiders defeating Roddy Piper and Ric Flair. Outsiders retained the WCW World Tag Team Championship in 10 minutes in this one. What are your thoughts on Hall and Nash going over Flair and Piper, and was there a problem with Flair and Piper losing, like from them?
No, I don't think so. They might have been a little bitching, but not really, or they wouldn't have done it. So, I mean, it was time to, hey, we were getting these guys over. It's like, let's go back to that question. Oh, I can't believe they put Roman Reigns over Cody. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's you can't allow. You got to get your heels up and running.
The thing was with that to me is Kevin Green, Flair, and Piper defeated Hall, Nash, and Six the month earlier, like clean as a whistle. Right. Then the next month, Piper is fighting Flair, so kind of makes sense that Hall and Nash beat them because they're going to end up feuding with each other, like dissension amongst the ranks. Piper defeats Flair at Bash of the Beach '97, but it's one of the things where booking wise it makes sense because the Outsiders lost the month before, then they get they kind of quote unquote get their win back, but obviously because Piper and Flair have dissension.
But where did they beat the Outsiders? Charlotte.
Yes, the Flair's return. The crowd was nuts. Yep, awesome match.
All 3 laid down in the middle of the ring.
Yep.
So, I mean, it seems a lot easier than it is. And I wonder how many people now are saying that Roman should have got beat after what they've been, the kind of business they're doing, the kind of ratings they're doing.
Yep.
Do you think it possibly could be higher ratings if Cody had won?
No.
Okay.
Nope. I don't. No way. Your thoughts on Macho Man Randy Savage defeating DDP Diamond Dallas Page? Obviously, Savage was with Miss Elizabeth. DDP's with Kimberly. This was a Falls Count Anywhere match, lights out match. What are your thoughts on Savage going over DDP here?
I think he should have. He's Randy Savage. I mean, we have done enough jobs. I mean, Page was an up and comer. You're getting the rub by just wrestling Randy, and he ended up beating him a couple of times. So it didn't hurt Page. It elevated Page just to be in the ring with Randy.
Yep. And he beat him 2 months earlier at Spring Stampede, which was a shocking win. So he was already over from beating Savage for sure.
Right.
What about the lights out match, like that stipulation, that match? What did you think about that? Was that just something to almost up the ante, if you will, in the feud?
It's just throwing a gimmick on top of the match to try to make it seem more dangerous than it's going to be.
when you're booking it and you're doing that, does that make sense? Because to me it does, but like as a booker, is that going through your head like we got to up the ante? Like this feud's getting a little hotter. Let's throw some fire, or let's throw some more gasoline onto the fire.
Then you need to do a hot finish. You really need to hurt the babyface. Because why are you going to have a lights out match if nobody gets hurt?
Right. Great feud. Feud of the year 1997, which is saying a lot because Austin and Bret Hart feuded in 1997. So pretty amazing feud with DDP and the Macho Man for sure. So just a few questions here from Great American Bash 1998. What was the best of 7 series idea from as far as Booker T and Chris Benoit? I know we talked about this on a previous episode, but was it from Magnum and Nikita?
No, it was from baseball. I gave Dusty that idea. We did in Florida. Best 4-hour-7 baseball. Being a baseball fan.
So when you looked at Booker T versus Benoit, not necessarily, hey, we're doing a Magnum Nikita thing. We're doing a baseball best of 7 thing.
Yeah.
And technically speaking, Magnum Nikita, like you said, is your idea. So it's not like you're borrowing from Dusty. You're borrowing from yourself.
Oh, yeah. And we had done it in Florida.
Oh, yeah? With who?
Barry and somebody, I can't remember who it was right off the top. I'm trying to. It might have been Jake.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. The best of 7, to me, it's just a great idea, but you need the right opponents. Obviously, Benoit, Benoit and Booker T are obviously those guys, big time.
Right.
So the next match on the card was Canyon defeating Saturn. Match actually went about 15 minutes. So it was a long match. It's Sick Boy was with Canyon for this one. What did you think just of Canyon? What did you think of Sick Boy? Like, what did you think of, and their kind of feud with Saturn and the feud with the Flock?
I thought they were both good workers. This was Raven and Paige's ideas.
So they came up with a lot of the angles, if you will.
With Canyon, with the triad at one time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sick Boy. Any thought of doing anything with him?
Yeah, I thought he was great. I mean, he could help out in the card. All you had to do was take care of him, not abuse him. He was very good.
So as far as this is an interesting. What were your thought process on, speaking of the Flock and speaking of guys in the Flock, Juventud defeats Reese, the 7'2" monster, with Lodi in about 9 minutes. What was the thought process putting Hoovy over Reese here?
If you remember, Ray had beaten Kevin Nash.
Yep. So you're going a little unpredictable, the small guys are beating the giants.
Huge pop.
Yep.
And not belittle anybody, but Reese was not in Kevin Nash's league at the time. He's really green. So why not do something entertainment?
True. And it's funny, like Reese, he's huge, he's a monster, but did he have the talent or the charisma? He's no Big Show, he's no giant, or he's no Andre, if you will. I mean, he is huge, but he didn't have the star power or the charisma even of a Hoovy, even though Hoovy's, small guy.
Right.
Next question that popped up here is thoughts on Chavo Guerrero defeating Eddie Guerrero. Match went 15 minutes. What was the thought process on Chavo actually going over Uncle Eddie here?
What year was that?
1998. Great American Bash 98.
Was I? I wasn't booking that then, was I? No.
Yeah, you're still the booker.
Okay. Well, I think we thought it would elevate Chavo just working with it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's a hard position to take. I mean, you know, when you're related to someone in the business and they're in the same company as you, it's very difficult. It's like Owen and Brett, right? Owen is probably much better technical wrestler, don't you think?
Technical, no, technical wise, I'd give it to Brett. I think overall Owen might, because he's a good high flyer. He
Yeah,
could do,
well,
he could do much more. He could do
that's sort
more.
of what I meant. When I say
Yeah.
technical, I kind of put in that's high flying stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, but did he get over like Brett?
No, no way.
Did Bulldog get over like Brett?
No, no way.
Wasn't Dynamite related to?
Yes.
He didn't. Nighthawk.
Nope.
The other 12 people they had there. No one.
No. Nope.
Okay. So it shows that it's very hard. But I thought it elevated Owen when he worked with Brett, right?
100%. Yep.
Okay, and that's what we're trying to do with Chavo. And I think we accomplished. I think Chavo is a very underrated talent.
Whose idea was it to feud Eddie and Chavo, Guerrero versus Guerrero?
I actually think that Eddie and Chavo came up with their idea. Because I'm not a big one of family fighting family for money. But they came up with their idea. That idea. It was great.
I agree. So then here we have a question again about, of course, Bash 98. It says, how come Chris Benoit didn't win the TV title on any televised shows or pay-per-views? He would always kind of win the TV title on a house show. Any thought behind that with Benoit not winning the TV title on TV?
Well, you're still trying to get people to come to house shows, right?
Yes.
He was a big draw, and they got a huge pop when he won. Heel or babyface. So why not let him win at the house shows?
It is the TV title, though. Any thought process, or that doesn't matter? That's called the quote-unquote TV title.
I mean, it's really the prop to get you to make, when you're looking at the card, U.S. champion, cruiserweight champion, you know, all this. JP, my wife just pulled up, Bubba.
All right, we will save the rest of the questions here for next time. But let's hit the plugs. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. Check out the website, tmptempire.com. Kevin, what do you got?
Now I'm off a couple of weeks, so I'm enjoying it. So see about talking to that guy and fly me up there, okay, JP?
Yes, will do.
Let me know
Yep,
this
will
week.
do.
We'll take it off that end, okay?
Yep, sounds good.
Thank you, baby.
Yep, thank you.
As quick as you can call me so I can make arrangements, okay?
Yes, yep, will do.
Thank you,
Yep,
baby.
and thank you, everybody, for listening. See you right back here next time for a little Taskmaster Talks with Kevin Sullivan. We'll see you next week, folks.